Get the dog off me.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show tonight. Tonight we have Kyle McComb. Kyle, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, what waters you fish.
Yep, like he said, my name's Kyle McComb. I am from southern Indiana here. I actually live in a small town called Mitchell in between Patoka and Monroe Lake. And typically I'll fish the Ohio River, and occasionally I'll slide down to the Little White River that's nearby here. And yeah, there's some big fish from time to time, but you maybe 1 out of 20 trips you'll luck up and catch one. But mainly I'm going to take it down to the Ohio every chance I can get.
We got some Thomas Littlepage and Sharina keeping it real. They fish the White River. Their house is like walk out their back door and go 200 yards and the river's there. So they've been fishing that quite a bit. So they'll probably be asking some questions about the White River.
Sure.
How long you been fishing?
Longer than I can remember fishing.
There you go. There you go.
I've seen plenty of pictures of me that I don't remember where the fish were bigger than I am, and
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Had a few people come in. Thomas Littlepage, Hilljack Catfishing, Dale Hayslip, a few other people I've seen come in. Appreciate y'all stopping by. We're gonna have a good little night here with Kyle. Let's go over your gear, from your rods and reels, your tackle, all the way to the boat to the depth finder.
All right. Rods. Some of you guys might know I'm pro staff with the Real Catnappers, Steve and Rachel Stacy. They live over around Charleston, just off the Ohio River also. I ran into them a couple of years ago. I've always been a sucker for a deal, budget guy. And I was using like Berkeley big game rods and just like Tidewater reels, Shakespeare Tidewater reels, and I started catching a few fish and a few more, and then the stuff started getting a little serious. So I kind of looked around and sought out a higher standard catfish rod and stainless steel eyes and all this. And a buddy of mine had mentioned to me that there was this local crew that had this rod company, Real Catnappers. So I checked them out, and it's like 7'6" and stainless steel eyes, and they look like the same rod that I was going to pay somebody else $100 for, but I think they were like $65, And I was like, well, hell yeah, let's try those out. And, here I am 2 years later, and I'm just awesome friends with the company owner and stuff, and we fish all the time. So, little boy's crying.
He wants to get in the show too.
He's mad. He knows he don't get to go fishing. So, I prefer their rods, all their 7'6" models. As far as my reels go, I'm still a little bit of a cheapo. I use the Cast King Rover 70s and 60s. That Rover 70, that's a killer deal, I think they're roughly 60 something bucks. They got the power handle and like 24 pounds of drag. They're got a good little clicker on them. I've had a few, fail me, but it was not from lack of abuse by no means. So, as far as my hooks and stuff go, I have experimented with everything under the sun. I mean, everything. I've tried the Big River 12-aught circle hooks, the Amazon hooks, the eBay hooks, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we caught fish and all, but I always missed a ton of fish. My hookup ratio was just horrible. And again, Steve Stacy, the owner of Real Catnappers, had told me about these TK hooks, tackling cats, and so I gave them a try, and they're a wide gap circle hook. So their 6-aught looks like some people's 8-aught or 9-aught, just looks like a monster. Just the gap on it, but it's got a short shaft offset, real sturdy, all American made hooks. And seemed like my hookup ratio had just went through the roof of those things. So I haven't turned back since. That's been about 8 months ago, and just a high quality hook that I feel like I can trust my equipment. The way I got it set up now, and that's a big part of it. If you ask me, if you don't have any faith in your equipment, then what good is it when that 180-pounder swims by and decides he's going to bite that day?
Exactly right.
So as far as line goes, again, I'm a cheapo. I don't buy the name brand stuff or anything. I get the Hercules braid off of Amazon. I run the 80 on the bumping rods and the smaller rods, and the bigger equipment I use, I run a 100-pound braid. Typically, I'll use a 80-pound Cast King leader line that they make. It's just a clear, pretty cheap, pretty inexpensive leader line. It's like $8 or $9. I tried that slime line leader line, but I am not impressed with the knot. When you tie a snell knot with that thing, it don't cinch up good for me. I feel like when I let it go, that snell knot wants to come back out. And with the Cast King, it really settles down and gets real tight for me. So I kind of prefer that stuff, even though it's not the big name and all that, but it works.
Yes, sir. Sure does. Touch on your boat and your depth finder a little bit.
Yeah, right now I'm running a 20-foot CR Striper 200. The chances of one of you guys seeing one around is slim to none. They were only made for a couple of years by CR back in '06, '07, I believe. And my dad had bought it, and we started doing guide trips and fishing tournaments out of it for stripers and hybrids down in Tennessee when I used to live down there. And so when I moved up here and started getting into catfishing real big, we've kind of converted it over. Now it's got a 123-gallon live well, pure oxygen, Venturi systems and on it and stuff. I don't know how many fish bite rod holders are sitting around that thing. It's probably got 25 rod holders on it. So, my trolling motor, I was just talking to you about that before the show. I got a Minn Kota Ulterra 112 self-deploy, and it has never let me down until it got cold outside. And all of a sudden, this winter, it just crapped out on me. So here it is, bumping season, and trolling motors are on back order. And I talked to my buddy Vince, who's a trolling motor dealer. Got one ordered, and it's still going to be like 2 or 3 more weeks to get this thing. So I'm watching you guys catching all these fish bumping, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like I'm going to have to throw the anchor out in front of the dam or something and just start
Right.
bumping. Like it's killing me, man.
I guarantee it. I would be lost. I would be lost.
Oh, yeah. Throwing that anchor stuff. I mean, that's so 3 or 4 years ago. I'm used to that spot lock.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. As far as uh, graphs, I got a little Lowrance 7-inch on there just for a backup. I haven't put it on in probably a year and a half since I got my new Humminbird. I run a Solix 15 Gen 1 and side imaging GPS, and that thing is bad to the bone.
Hmm.
I mean, fish can't hide from that thing. It's all touch screen, it's an awesome unit. Another thing that's really beneficial about the Humminbird is they have a maps chip for the Ohio River. I mean, one that has the Ohio River on it for contour lines and stuff. And I've got to say that is probably one of my absolute most beneficial tools on that boat to catching fish. There's those days when you go out and you can't find fish on the graph, right? Not the ones you want anyway. And so I'll start targeting different contours, whether it's a flat or the edge of a flat or the edge of a ledge and so forth. And once I'm able to finally pop a few fish and pattern something, then with that contour map, I can just go anywhere I want and say, all right, 2 miles up the river, I caught them along this 50-foot ledge. I'm going to go down the river find the next 50-foot ledge and boom, boom, and never even see those fish on the graph. So that contour map, that is a must-have in my opinion on the Ohio River.
I might have to look into that. I didn't know that they offered that. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's the to get the Ohio River on it. It's from the Ohio River north up to Michigan. It would be the Great Lakes edition,
Hmm.
what it's considered. So basically, everything from the Ohio River north um, is covered on there. All the lakes, all my Indiana lakes, and everything else. And if you want from Kentucky, from like the Ohio River down, you need to get the southeastern version, which will take you from Kentucky all the way to Florida.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good information. I did not know that. I've been with Lawrence ever since I started, and of course, they don't have hardly anything.
Trust me, I was a diehard. You are not going to change me for nothing, Lawrence fan. I grew up on Lawrence. We had a Lawrence that printed on the paper and the little paper rolls back in the day, and I mean, it was just a way to go. But a couple of my buddies kept hounding on me about the contour map on that Humminbird, and I'm like, oh, come on now, how big of a difference can it make? And I'm here to tell you that is the ticket.
Hmm.
I mean, between that contour map and the trolling motor controls we have these days, the controllability of a boat, I mean, no fish is safe.
So, do you link them? Do you link your trolling motor to your depth finder?
Mine are linkable. Man, I haven't took the time and done it. Ran the cable because my boat's a center console. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt because I'd have to run the cords all the way down the side of the boat to the back and then up through the floor. And yeah, so no, I use my hand control, and kind of keep me where I'm at. If I wanted to, I could link it and do the whole stay in 30 foot of water and it would run, like you see the walleye fishermen or the professionals doing. But I ain't, you know how it is. I ain't got time for that. I'm trying to fish, man.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We had a few more people pop in. Oh, Scotty Hill, Maurice Kaysen, Serena keeping it real, Mike Sampson, Paula Smith, Hooks and Hammocks, Ed, Mike Irvin, Creole, my brother, and old Sunfish. Everybody's popping in. Good to see you guys. I think I know the answer to this, but anchor, drift, or bump is your favorite?
Uh, Man, I'm still fairly fresh to the bumping. I've only been on that for like a year and a half. That's that's probably the most addicting thing out there. Period. I mean, I like drifting and watching that rod go down. I don't do it much anymore. Just maybe through May. Anchoring, of course, I do that all through the winter, which is it's a lot of fun too. But man, feeling them fish when they hit that rod in your hand, that's got me plumb just head over heels. I went to Alabama last year with Andy Williams and Delmer Wagler and a bunch of us, and those guys have been bumping for a long time, and we went down to below one of the dams there, and I had actually caught my first decent fish bumping like a 30-pounder or something, and man, that fish hit, and that rod doubles over, and you're 2 mile an hour current, 3 mile an hour current, you're freaking out, and I mean it's just a blast, man. That probably can't be beat.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. First, I remember the first fish I ever caught bumping, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do anything else.
I actually caught my very first one down there at Newburgh a couple of years ago with Delmer Wagler. And, buddy, we were hitting like 3 foot waves and stuff. The wind's blowing straight up the river. And I was just using some little junk bass GX2 bass rod from Walmart, with a reel of braid on it. And I hooked a 15-pounder. And you would have thought I had a 100-pounder on there. I was screaming and hollering, "Oh, God, stop!"
Yeah, yeah.
It comes up, it's like a 15-pounder. I mean, that was pretty. Man, what a feeling!
Well, that current can fool you too. Now that current can fool you.
Absolutely.
We had a few more people pop in. Palmetto, Holly Hobie House. That's a new name for me, so welcome. Real Catnapper has actually popped in. Steve Stacy came in. So, hey, buddy, how you doing? Kay Fredman, too. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
Got to stay on top of that and give everybody a shout out when they come in. It's kind of hard sometimes. Is there anything that you do differently that separates you from everybody else?
Uh, in my mind, absolutely. Um, I've been catfishing my whole life. But I'm majorly been striper fishing and hybrid fishing since I was a kid and raised up. Tournament fishing with my dad, doing that stuff. And we were big into pulling planer boards with live shad and doing a lot of that kind of stuff with planer boards, and that's kind of my big thing. I really enjoy pulling planer boards, and I'll pull them anywhere, anytime I can in some crazy situations. But I think the thing that would separate me a lot of times would be if everybody goes out to their same old spot, the same old thing, and they're not catching fish. I'm always want to be the first one that's going to do the exact opposite to find them fish. I mean, guys in the wintertime, they think they got to go out and hit these 60-foot holes and anchor up and sit there all day. I mean, you wouldn't believe the kind of fish I've caught in 2 and 3 foot of water all winter. Like shallow water don't bother me, deep water don't bother me. A lot of guys think they just got to stick to the same old thing or Steve Douglas video they watched, and I was the same way. But I've learned in time after spending all this money running down the Ohio River and not catching fish. I'm like, now wait a minute, something's got to give. Going 3 weeks without catching a fish down there, that's awful. So, yeah, I'm not scared to try anything that is absolutely out of the ordinary. Nothing's off limits for me.
Get a little shout out there for Real Catnappers.
Yeah, he's the high water king. Yeah, when it floods, buddy, you will find me in some bad places.
You definitely got that high water figured out. That's for sure.
That high water, that's my favorite, probably to kind of stuff to fish because, I mean, that water gets up in the field or in treetops where, you're usually 10, 15 feet down below these things. To me, that's fun. That's a challenge. I mean, just finding a brush pile in 3 foot of water, and typically you're going to be like, "There's not a fish over there." Boom, a 60-pounder comes out of that thing. He tail slash the water when he realizes he's hooked or something.
That's freaking awesome there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of the planer boards, do you ever toss any of them out when you're anchored?
Well, one time, me and Andy Williams tried it on spot lock one time. It was just to try to run one over towards a hard spot for us to get to that day. But that was probably the only time I've done that. I'm not really experimenting with it. I probably should a little more, but typically the only time I'm on anchor is in the wintertime, and usually I'm in a pretty tight spot. A board's not going to do me much good.
Yeah. I remember we anchored one time and I threw one out and it actually went over just perfect on a barge and just hung out right beside that thing. We ended up catching, it was like 25-pounder, but I was like, man, I'm proud of myself for that one. That's pretty cool.
That's actually what me and Andy tried to do that day. We run one over to a barge, because we couldn't get over there because they were loading stuff on it, and it was like, man, how are we going to get closer? Well, let's try it.
Somebody's telling you not to say too much now. Oh, Stan Brown came in. How you doing, buddy? Table Rock Lake came in. I'm not sure. That's a new name too, I believe. What got you into chasing these big old awesome fish?
Oh man, I met a guy when I had first moved up here, and I was I moved up here. My parents moved up here, so I kind of come up and hung out with them for the first year, and I got a job and all that. Started getting on my feet, um, and I had to find a place to rent. So somebody had passed me a phone number and like, "Hey, call this guy. He's got a couple of properties to rent." All right, so I call him and I go over and I'm talking to him. He's showing me this little house he's got, and we strike a deal or whatever. And well, he comes over to get the rent like a month later, and of course me, I got some fishing pictures on the refrigerator, and he's like, "Man, you like fishing?" Well, yeah, you know. And, uh, he said, "Well, let's go catfishing sometime." So he actually took me out that next weekend to fish my first ICA tournament I'd ever fished, and it was on the White River. It's been 5-6 years ago now, and first time I ever realized they even had catfish tournaments. That was new to me, and so it all started from there. It's been just a spiral effect.
Do you ever specifically target the old flathead?
Man, I tell you what, when I first started fishing the Ohio, I didn't have much. I had some like I said, like some Berkeley big game rods from Walmart, and I had this. I started in a 16-foot John bow. Then I got a little 17-foot bass tracker. So I didn't know anything. I just knew to go around and anchor up and try to find fish. And I used to do amazing on flatheads down on the Ohio River. I wasn't so good at blues, and I'm getting text messages, and I need a shout out. I need a shout out. uh, yeah, I mean, I used to catch a lot of flatheads on the Ohio, and there were times I could go out and I couldn't keep a rod in the water by myself. I'd be doubled up on them things, and then I got tired of that. I'm like, I want to catch these big blues everybody keeps talking about. And as soon as I got turned on to blue cat fishing and started figuring a few things out, it was like I just can't hardly make time to flathead fish anymore.
Ever since I started the bumping, man, I haven't actually I haven't went anchored up for a flathead for probably 3 years now.
Yeah, yeah, they're there. It's so hard when you can be moving while you're fishing to just sit in one spot.
I take that back. Last year, me and old Don, we ran up to the dam and the water got just the wind was blowing, storm moving in. We said, man, let's go home. We turned around and was heading back, and we got about 300 yards from Angel Mounds, and there's nice little trees over there. I said, man, we're out here, man. Let's at least anchor for a couple hours.
Yeah.
We sit there and caught like 4 fish over 30 pounds. We anchored up on the tree and we caught blue cats.
Yeah.
I was like, when we're actually trying to catch one of these flatheads, we're smoking the blue cats. But I guess.
Yeah, it happens. My biggest flathead came off of the White River just here local. I mean, 20 minutes from where I live a couple of years ago. Again, when I was in the little 17-foot boat, and I used to catch all the flatheads. And I stuck a 57-pounder down there one day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a life changer there. That was quite the experience. But yeah, ever since I got rid of that little boat and got in the big one and started targeting blues, it's been all downhill for my flathead fishing.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. Excuse me. Country boy catfishing come in here. Hey, buddy, how you doing? When you was looking for them flatheads, we'll say, what did you look for?
Man, on the Ohio River, honestly, I probably did my best in 50 foot of water, around anywhere between 40 and 60 foot of water, and anywhere like in those areas where I could find big boulders or big rock structure. The stereotypical thing is hey, there's a tree in the water, the flathead's over there in that tree, right? That was not the case with my experience whatsoever. It seemed like the the nastier and bigger boulders I could find, that's where the flathead were for me.
Hmm.
Those things they would be stacked in behind rock piles. And that's always been my go-to area. Is like if somebody says, "Hey, I want to catch a flathead," I'm going to the nastiest, rockiest place I know.
Heck
Especially
yeah.
especially in the daytime. If I want to go out there at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and catch a flathead, I'm finding some 50 foot of water and some big, gnarly, rocky structure.
We kind of touched on a little bit, but in that high water, what are you looking for?
Uh, in the high water, um, I like to get out of the main river, of course, right? Fish a lot of creeks or small rivers, contributaries or tributaries. But a lot of times I'm looking for current. Current's usually my go-to, depending on how bad it is. Um, the higher the current, the faster the current, the more I'm going to target on anything that's a form of a current break. No matter how small of a creek or ditch or small river I'm in, I want the most nastiest current ripping out of that thing after a big rain. And I'm going to go in and target. Let's say where a big tree has fell down and took a big cut out of the bank, and there might not be any structure there at all. That tree's gone, right? But if there's a small current break right there, and a little eddy water or something, and I'm talking something the size of a truck. I mean, it don't have to be big at all. Any form of current break is what I'm going to target. Now, on other days, when I don't have so much current, when it's maybe a half mile an hour or even as much as a mile an hour, um, a lot of times I like to target wooded area. Of course, mud bottoms. I don't like to fish any form of rock bottom in the wintertime. Those fish will, it seems like those fish stay down in the mud a lot in the winter. I'm not sure there's theories about why that is, high pressure or the mud's warmer or whatever, but I don't really know. I just know that mud bottoms is the place to be in the high water for me. I feel like they get up in there when that water comes up. I feel like it floods the crayfish out, the crawdads and everything else. And I mean, those fish they act just like any other fish. And easier food sources is the best way to go. So
What about in the low water situations when we have to drift, or it's pretty much spot lock on top of shit or stuff?
uh, if it's too low, I'm dragging. But um, man, as far as being out on the river on those days, when you got an anchor out on the river or spot lock, uh, I'll probably start out looking for creek mouths, any kind of holes to the edge of the river, and then typically I will target the deepest water I can find in the general area that I'm around, depending on where I'm at on the river, um, and see if I can pick up a few fish there. And if not, I like I said, I like to go against the grain again. Here I'm going to fly up in that really shallow water and find some wooded structure or something. Use the side imaging. That side imaging, that's an unbelievable tool you got to have. Also, if you want to be able to fish all different situations, you might not use it all year, but there's that 1 or 2 days or months out of the year you got to have it. So,
Talk a little bit about bait. I see you use a lot of like common carp and buffalo carp.
Asian carp would be the number one for me. We've caught fish. We've caught fish from 2 pounds to 82, 83 pounds in the last year, all on Asian carp. I mean that stuff. It's so easy for me to just go get. Like when we're done with this, I'm gonna drive down to the river here 20 minutes away, and I'm gonna throw my cast net and catch a couple, and I'm gonna have enough bait for me and another guy or two guys for a whole trip. And it really started with the fact that there's so many of them in the Ohio River. And in the White River, they're everywhere. I mean, you've seen. I'm sure you've seen your graph black completely
Mhm.
out because of these Asian carp. And so, in the last couple of years, I've been fishing tournaments. And I keep fishing a live well. Well, they're puking up these huge gill plates and these, like fins and tails. And I mean, I've seen some huge pieces of Asian carp come up in my live well, and I'm thinking, now, how did that 15-pound fish the head on that 4-pound Asian carp? Like, what's going on here? So, I mean, there's a month or two out of the year I can get skipjack here locally on the White River. Last couple of years, it's been really bad. It hasn't been near as good as it had in the past, and so I started using it one day. I tried it out almost a year ago now, and I took it with me to a tournament. I said I'm going to give it a fair chance. I said we're not taking anything for bait, and we're going to put money on the line, and we're going to see what happens. Just other than Asian carp. So me and my buddy Chad, we went down and fished Cannleton, and we actually went down around Corn Island or something, somewhere I'd never been. Like a whole new place to me. This whole new bait, running nothing but that crap. And in that tournament, we caught 25, 30 fish in 6 hours. And from that day on, it has changed. Like
Nice.
I'm not above using anything else for bait. Like I used to watch Steve Douglas and think I gotta have fresh skipjack, and I got to have the skipjack, and that just is not the case. It couldn't be any further off. So,
A question here in chat. Table Rock Lake Adventures by Aaron. On a large lake, do you stick to fishing feeder creeks or do you fish the coves on the main part of the lake as well?
oh man, them feeder creeks. If there's any water coming out of them, got to hit those feeder creeks. That's how I caught my biggest flatheads. Down here on Patoka. Whenever it's been a good hard rain and you got a little feeder creek dumping water in there, that's the place to be, man.
That's another place I haven't been that I gotta get up there to fish at.
Well, I'd like to tell you you're missing out, but it's a it's a hit and miss too. I mean, it's got some giant flatheads in it, but it's another one of those that you might fish it 10 times and stick a good one once. So
We talked about your first tournament, and how long ago was that? How long have you been fishing tournaments?
I fished that one probably. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago. It's been a pretty good while ago. Um, Unfortunately, after that, I I'm a recovering addict, and I had relapsed into my drug addiction, and had a couple of rough years in between here and there. And of course, I got into some trouble again, and went through the steps and got back in the programs and kind of got my crap together and started, you know, reconnecting with my old fishing buddies and everything, and got right back into it. It was like I never left, and took right back off. So probably the last 2 years I've been hitting as many as I can, but that first one was 4 or 5 years or 5 or 6 years ago at least.
Well, let's talk a little bit about pre-fishing. Do you like pre-fishing?
Who put you up to that? somebody
Nobody.
somebody put you up to that question. I love pre-fishing. It's the best. I just hate the consequences.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah.
Or stop. Another question here in chat. Where do you catch cats in a small river with heavy current and a very few eddies?
Oh man, my experience like here on the White River is right dead smack in the middle. Like that river's probably a lot of places that I fish. It's anywhere from 60 to 80 yards wide, and man, I like to set up in the middle if your river's small enough that if you're fishing with 6 rods and you can fan them out and hit both banks, then I like to throw the spread out there, and I also like to throw them all out about the same distance. I'm not going to throw one way out further than the other. I want to keep a good steady line straight across that river. So if a fish comes by that bait, one of those baits, they're all at the same distance. He's not going to pass one that was too far to the left or one that was too far to the right. He's either going to have to come right up the middle of them two baits or run right into one. So I definitely I got to hit dead center on that.
It just hit me. I was thinking about when we talk about tournaments and pre-fishing. You didn't pre-fish for the King of the Green, did you?
I went out. That was horrible. I did the week prior. I've never been down there ever. I had no idea where I was going. I was somewhere down in Kentucky in the middle of nowhere. Felt like I could hear the banjos playing as I was launching my boat, but I'd always heard how awesome it was, so I told a buddy of mine that fished it with me. I said, "Well, let's go down there and check it out. Let's go way up the." We went somewhere. I don't even know what town it was in, but it was a pretty good ways up the Green River, a lot further from where the tournament was, and it was beautiful. It was just like my White River here, but a bigger version, and a lot of deep water, a lot of structure, and all that. But I don't think we ever, I don't think we ever caught a fish that entire day. And I thought, boy, this is gonna suck. So when I showed up tournament day, I was like, I just came on down to where the tournament was being held at and said, I don't know what I'm doing, guys, but I'm here to show my support. you know,
Well, it worked out for you.
yeah. And again, I went with the exact opposite. Everybody told me I had to go upriver. Well, I went upriver the week before, and it was horrible. So I was like, well, it can't get any worse downriver. Might as well try it.
I've hardly ever fished from where they was having the tournament in Spotsville. I've hardly ever fished that stretch. I always go up to the next ramp at the Hamilton Ferry Boat Ramp, and I've always had better luck upriver.
Have you? I wish I lived closer. I would love to fish that thing a lot more, especially in the winter.
It's really good. That's the only time I ever fish it is wintertime. I need to go see if there's any flatheads in there in the summer, but I never do.
I would imagine it's loaded.
Sure. Where are we at? Where are we at? Speaking of tournaments, man, we've got kind of a busy few weeks coming up. Are you going to fish the Poor Boys next weekend?
Where's it at?
I think that's Grandview.
Sounds like a date to me.
And then we got Angel Mounds back to back at ICA May 1st, and then the rod ripping guys are there May 8th.
Um, I'm not sure with my work schedule if I'll have to pick between the two, but I would definitely have to pick with the rod ripping crew because they give a plaque away, for every place they pay out, and to me that's worth more than any of the money.
Mm-hmm.
Something to hang on the wall is way cooler than a couple $100 in your pocket.
Yep. Even the junky looking ones, I like them all. I like them. I still hang them up.
I got a couple of them in the garage, and I'm a lot more prouder of that than I am a couple $100 I took home.
That's exactly right.
Somebody should bring that up to Corey Peterson and the ICA guys. Let's start giving away colored pieces of paper with our place on it and a little cheap picture frame.
I seen you got your wife out there fishing some with you.
Oh yeah, she now that we got the baby though, last year she was pregnant, so she did her best as long as she could. And now we got the baby, so usually one of us has to split the day with him while the other one gets to go fishing.
She's caught some big fish too, hasn't she?
She has. She's laid the smackdown on them a few times. She has been my wintertime good luck charm, we'll say.
I don't think I asked you what's your personal best and what's her personal best, if you remember.
Hers is 60 pounds.
8.
Oh, sorry, 68. I've been
There
correct.
you go. You can't
Yeah.
get it right.
And at me like she was in a hip fight. Yeah, she got a pretty good one. She also had 2 or 3 more that same day. My personal best, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what it was. The very first time I'd ever went down the Ohio River, a buddy of mine took me down there, and we were going up to Candleton and drifting back. And the very first fish we caught, I happened to grab the rod, and it was just an absolute giant. And still to this day, I don't feel like I put one in the boat as big as that. Um, I think our scale was either 70 or 75 pound scale that we had that day. I mean, we weren't prepared or expecting anything like that, and it just bottomed that thing out, you know. So I try to gauge it off like when I lift fish now, like 60, 70, and 80 pounders. I'm like, well, that doesn't hurt my back so much. That fish that day hurt my back, you know.
I know we kind of touched on it a little bit with you talking about your depth finder, but if you go to a new area, are you marking the fish before you set up on them? Do you have to be confident enough to see the fish to set up on them?
Oh, absolutely not. No, those. I mean, like I said, you know, there's days that those fish are so tight to the bottom, you can't tell the difference between them and a piece of wood down there, or a stick, you know, or a tire. So I'm not gonna always go on finding fish. A lot of times I'm gonna go with my gut, or I'm gonna go with that contour map, and then from there try to form a pattern of some kind.
Oh, two stands fishing come in. Hey, buddy, appreciate you. What's maybe the fish you caught that you don't have a weight on? What's the hardest fighting fish you've ever caught?
Oh, probably the blues, man. Them blues will tear you up. I've seen
Yes, they will.
pulled off one day. One clamped on him and rolled while he was getting it out of the live well, and he pulled his hand out, blood shooting everywhere, you know. And I'm like, oh, we're all screaming, oh my god! And the blue cats are something serious, especially in the like from July to November when they're eating those mussels and we're tearing them up on the mussel beds. Those fishes, like their mouth gets so rough, like they'll tear you to pieces, you know.
I've always thought the flatheads fight really well, but my biggest flathead's 43, and that thing was a beast. So I couldn't imagine that 50 something you caught.
Yeah, that one took about 20 minutes, a real 20 minutes. You know how when you get excited, you're like, man, that was forever. Well, we got this one on video. It was a real 20 minutes of me just, I'm shaking and my knees are getting weak by the time it was over. It was awful.
Very winded.
I guarantee it.
I picked it up to weigh it. I couldn't even breathe or nothing.
I like to ask everybody that comes on if you could fish with anybody, who would it be?
If I could fish with, I fish with you all the time. Yeah, my wife. Man, I don't know. I think I'd like to go out with probably Steve Douglas. You know, I owe a lot of credit to him. Watching his videos at work on lunch breaks and stuff a few years back. Watching him catch big fish and making it look easy, I thought, damn, like I can do this. So I've always kind of looked up to him since all that, and I don't know, I'd like to hang out with him for a day. I think that'd be all right.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty cool dude. I think he'd be fun to hang out with. We'll kind of go back to the tournaments a little bit. You got any bigger ones planned for the year?
I don't, but I know I'll get drug into one somewhere. I'm hoping that I'd like to fish at Monsters on the Ohio for it'd be. I haven't fished one yet. So
Really?
into that, yeah. I don't know if I want to go out and fish one on the Mississippi. I know I'm going to go out and fish the Mississippi River a few times this year. but I don't know if I'm too worried about a tournament out there, one of them big ones. Uh, Last year, I planned to go fish the Sea Arc tournament in Alabama that's actually going on next weekend. Uh,
Hmm.
Last year, and we had a house booked, and about 7 or 8 of us were all going to stay in this big house. And because of the COVID, they decided to shut the tournament down. So we all just went on vacation. But yeah, I haven't got into the big ones much. I fished a Rising Sun tournament. That was a pretty good sized one, but it was more miserable than fun. Yeah, so
Why is that?
I mean, if it takes you 4 hours to do a weigh-in, or 3 hours to do a weigh-in, it's too much for me.
Wow, I've not fished that one. I've not heard.
Yeah, you're not missing too much. I'm not knocking them or anything, but man, it just wasn't for me.
I know I fished. I think my 2015 was the first year I fished the Monsters on the Ohio. I've been every year since. We
Yeah,
got lucky. We got lucky and got 12th place. 2017, I think it was, and that's my highlight. That's pretty awesome.
that's awesome. Who's
180 something boats, and
who's going to be running that now?
oh goodness, some guys out of Missouri.
Really?
Trying to think of. They run a really nice tournament series down there over there. I can't think of the name of it to save my life right now, but they go live every now and then on the Monsters on the Ohio page. I go over and turn the notifications on, check them out. They seem to be pretty good guys.
Cool. Yeah, I seen Aaron Whitley wasn't doing it anymore, but the two guys that took over, and I don't, I didn't know who they were.
I told him I was mad at him just for the simple fact now I got to fish against him.
Yeah, is that what it was, Aaron Whitley? Just decide you want to fish your own tournament. Let us know, buddy.
There's a few of those bigger ones. I'd like to go down and fish the Bama Blues or the one that's in the cold weather down there.
Winter Blues.
Yeah, I'd like to go down there and check that out. I've only been down there twice.
It's a blast down there. I grew up pretty close to there.
Really?
But yeah, I'm from southern central Tennessee, and we used to go down there catfishing a few times a year, and man, it was always a blast, and we went back last year for a week and just had an absolute great time. Me and the wife went down there and got sunburnt and everything else, and then we drive all the way back to Indiana, and it's just freezing as we get here. And I drive over the Ohio River, and it's roaring and flooded and muddy, and I'm just like, oh hey, we're home.
Let's turn this around and head back.
Yeah, back to it felt like just doom and misery as I'm crossing that muddy river. Like I just want to go back down south.
Speaking of that down there, have you heard from Andy? Did they do any good in the tournament today?
I haven't heard. I seen somewhere he said they had caught a few fish. Not sure if he ever ended up with a big one or not. I hadn't heard from him yet.
I tried to look it up. I was watching the live feed earlier, but I guess I didn't catch them weighing in. That we went down and fished the very first Mississippi River Monsters. Me and Steven. That
Really?
was that was a pretty cool deal. We ended up. I mean, we didn't do well. We threw our fish back to get in the no fish pot. They actually had a really sweet deal.
Yeah,
We didn't win it, but
they had one of those at the Rising Sun when I went down there and fished that with Delmer Wagler, and we never caught a fish our first day there, and I was like, all right, well at least we're going to be in it on day two, for no fish. Of course, second day we finally figured something out, caught a couple dinks, and it was like at that point, dang, now we're out of that money. Let's just
right,
go home. I mean,
right.
by day two, we were just after that skunk money.
Pretty much. I know you said you've been fishing for a long time, so we're going to try to jog your memory. See what's your favorite memory in fishing.
Favorite memory in fishing. I would say I couldn't tell you how old I was. I was maybe 12 years old. And me and my dad and a buddy of his went out on Old Hickory striper fishing. And I caught one of my biggest stripers down there, and I remember being hooked up on that thing and putting I had my little life jacket on and stuff. And I remember putting my foot up on the back of the boat as the reel is screaming. And I remember having the fear of God in me that I was getting pulled off the boat, screaming at my dad, help me, he's pulling off the boat. And so, I mean, that one there, yeah, I'd have to say that one goes with me everywhere.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the fear that I thought I was going in or, it was a big fish. Either way.
Well, I've been trying to keep up with chat. There's not too many questions. I figured some people be asking about that White River. I know there's some people that fish it. People are always questioning that and the Wabash. You ever fished the Wabash River?
No, I haven't. I've had a few offers to go over there and fish a few tournaments, but I've just never made it over there. I've heard good and I've heard bad. I heard it. You always hear that saying, "Well, it's not as good as it used to be."
Right.
I hear that all the time about it, but I really couldn't tell you either way. I know a lot of guys that have caught fish, and I know a few guys that haven't. So
I know old John Ritchie, blackout bait and tackle guy. He went bumping on he spot locked or anchored and was bumping on the Wabash River, and he caught a couple monsters.
did he really?
Yeah, he did really good. What section of the White River do you fish?
I am up by Bedford, Indiana. I'll be fishing around Bedford or Williams Dam on the White River. I think is it the East Fork? East Fork, yeah. I live just on the East Fork of the White River. The one in Columbus, Indiana.
Is that near Shoals? Are you near Shoals?
It's not too far. Shoals is 25 minutes from here. Yeah.
Had some family that grew up there a long time ago. We used to go and camp out there, but I remember hearing the Williams Dam, but we never went and fished there or anything. But
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the place to be a couple times a year, and then the rest of the year you're wasting your time. It's just one of them small river things. I don't know if I ain't figured it out yet, or if it's just that when they're there, they're there. When they're not, they're not.
Right.
I sat out there. I got off of work at 4:00. I was on the water by 5:00 yesterday with fresh bait, and I sat out there till 10:00 last night, and I had 2 bites. So,
Wow. I'm hoping tomorrow's a little better for me also.
Where are you gonna go?
I'm just gonna probably put in at Angel Mounds and just look around and try to bump up some fish. She's on a hard fall, but oh well.
Well, I'd say you just get you one of them Amish hats, and apparently you want to jump in the boat.
That ain't no joke, man. That ain't no joke. I seen them boys at the boat ramp. I actually asked Delmar to help me get my boat up, and they was up there taking pictures of their fish, and I was like, man, y'all ain't even right now. I'm so mad.
That's all right though. For the other 8 months out of the year when you ain't bumping, I got something for them every time. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I always tell them, bumping season, that's your time to shine, boys.
We like that bumping after Jake caught that 92. We go find current to try to bump in it.
Yeah, man, that was an awesome fish.
That's still unbelievable.
Yeah. I think my son, he hears me talking about fishing. He's sitting over here getting fired up.
Let's go, Dad. Let's go.
You want to say hi, Hanky? That's the future of catfishing right there.
Heck yeah. He's going. He's gonna be catching fish bigger than him here soon, huh?
That's the plan, you know. Like that's one thing that I want to do with my kids is when I was little, my dad, we lived in Michigan when I was real little, and he would go catch these giant salmon and bring these things home. And there's like some old, dirty, rusty old type pictures of me laying around where I'm standing there and he's holding a salmon. It's like a foot longer than I am tall, you know. And I want to do that with my kids, you know. So,
That's pretty awesome.
you know, it's on the bucket list.
Well, I'm also recovering. So from one recovery to another, man, I congratulate you on your recovering.
Thank you, sir. What's today?
Tomorrow will be 4 years.
Tomorrow's the 18th.
Let's see. Tomorrow's the 18th. Yes.
Tomorrow will be 4 years for me, Mike.
Very awesome, man. Very awesome, brother. Very awesome.
Appreciate the support.
I appreciate you coming on here and sharing a few tricks and tips with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hang out and just talk a little catfishing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream. You stay here.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream. So I appreciate everybody watching. Y'all check us out. We'll see y'all later.
Thanks, guys.